New footage from Syria appears to provide the most concrete evidence yet that Iran is dialing up its presence in Syria. According to the BBC, the footage indicates that members of Iran's elite Revolutionary Guard are fighting on the side of Bashar al-Assad's regime. This video was uploaded by Syrian opposition fighters and shows at least 5 Iranians wearing military fatigues alongside a large group of pro-Assad forces. Now, according to the Wall Street Journal, a base camp 15 miles from Tehran has served as a training ground for Shia militiamen from all over the region. New recruits receive instruction in urban warfare from both Iran's military and Iran's clerics. And an Iranian military officer briefed on the training camp said in the Wall Street Journal, quote, "The fighters are told that the war in Syria is akin to an epic battle for Shia Islam, and if they die, they will be martyrs of the highest rank." Assad's increasing strength in the past few months is partly attributed to Iran's growing presence in the country, as well as, of course, Hezbollah's. Farnaz, obviously, for as much as Russia proposed this diplomatic deal, Iran was very much involved. It had to be, as it has been involved in the war from the very beginning. But what do you make of these new specific reports?
Well, the Wall Street Journal story that you mentioned is actually a story that I co-wrote with my colleagues, and this is something that's been a focus of my reporting. So what we have found is that the war in Syria has now become a proxy war of sorts. It's not just Assad against opposition or the regime against the opposition. It's also, in many ways, Saudi Arabia against Iran, sort of the America and the West against Russia. There's all sorts of proxy battles taking shape there. And Iran has been very involved. The Revolutionary Guard Corps have been in Syria for the past year and a half, and the commanders are giving advice on tactical military moves to the Syrian army. They're also training, as our article revealed, they're training not just Syrian fighters, but also Arab fighters, Arab Shia fighters in a military base near Tehran. And they're presenting this as a fight against Islam and the infidels, against East and West, against sort of the oppressed and the imperialists. So they're trying to really indoctrinate these fighters in ideology, in Shia ideology, in a revolutionary ideology, right. in order to sort of counter also the rebels and the opposition armed forces that are getting training from Saudi, from Qatar, that they're getting weapons, they're getting funds. So you have these two forces in the region, Iran and Saudi Arabia, kind of, fighting it out in Syria through their proxies.
Right. And Josh, I know you're in Lebanon. When we talk about Iran, Saudi Arabia fighting it out through their proxies, Lebanon is where the biggest burden has fallen in terms of refugees. I think the official number is 1 million. Obviously, the government there led by Hezbollah, Shia-led, and we've seen now Hezbollah's military wing by the European Union deemed to be a terrorist organization. So with all this happening and shifting, when I speak to friends on the ground in Lebanon, they seem to feel as though in the past week that things have calmed down. What can you tell us about what the mood is on the ground in Lebanon?
Ahmed, it's the mood on the ground in Lebanon is so fickle and so ephemeral. I have to tell you. I mean, it's true that I think that people generally feel, in contrast to a couple of weeks ago, when there was a concern that there were going to be cruise missile strikes flying overhead over this territory, and then there might be retaliation, and the airports might close, and Hezbollah might get involved, and all the sort of things that the mind goes to. And also, there's been a spate of car bombings here, which are in some way linked to the rising tensions in Syria. So everyone has been, of course, on edge at all times, and you could argue that it's calmed down a little bit. But what hasn't calmed down is the steady flow of refugees from Syria. The fact that the government here has done essentially nothing to help them, not just the Hezbollah part of the government, because in fact, in some ways, some Hezbollah neighborhoods have been some of the most welcoming to Syrian refugees in a sort of confusing way, like everything here. But the government's done nothing to help them. It's a problem that's continuing to spiral out of control and not getting any better, no matter what happens politically.